Welcome to A Journey in Song, where we look at the life and creative mind of Manda Menzies. She is a South African author, poet, lyricist, and storyteller. We're here to explore how she uses poetry and music to record her life experience, the raw feelings and thoughts she has transposed into song. In this episode, we're going to dive into the lyrics of No Thank You, written by Manda Menzies.
Yeah, and this one is it's just such an incredibly powerful piece to unpack.
It really is. But before we get into the music itself, I want you to picture something for a second. Just imagine you are drowning in, like, the most profound, devastating grief of your life.
Oh, wow. Love
Yeah,
that.
you are barely keeping your head above water, right? And suddenly, someone from your past throws you a life preserver.
Okay, that sounds like a good thing initially.
Right, initially. But then you realize they aren't actually doing it to save you. They're doing it so you will, praise their throwing arm.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's rough.
Exactly. So today, we are looking at how Manda Menzies survived that exact scenario.
That analogy perfectly captures the framework we're going to use for this analysis today. I like to call it the anatomy of a feeling.
The anatomy of a feeling. I like that. What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, we are exploring how Manda uses the act of songwriting, right? Not just to vent or, express herself, but as this highly sophisticated mechanical tool for psychological survival.
So it's more than just journaling with a melody.
Exactly. We're going to look at how a human being takes this visceral emotional shock from the outside world, processes it, and then transposes it into objective, structured art, basically, in order to regain balance.
Okay, so let's start right at the inciting incident of that emotional shock, because the lyrics open with a very specific real-world intrusion.
Right. The text message.
Yes. Manda receives a text message from a figure from her past, and this is someone who clearly wasn't around for the good times. The message is literally only 4 words long. It says, "Do you need me?"
Just those 4 words.
Yeah. And Manda notes in the lyrics that she doesn't answer immediately. She actually waits until the morning to process those 4 words.
And, she waits because her nervous system is already completely overloaded by her grief. But also it's because her intuition tells her something is just wrong with the phrasing.
Yeah, she calls it a lawyer brain question, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because when we look at the psychology of communication, especially during a crisis, phrasing is everything. Do you need me is structurally very different from a genuine offer of support.
How so?
Well, if this person actually cared about her well-being, they would have said something like, should you need me, just say, or can I help you in any way?
Right. But, okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure, go for it.
Are we sure we aren't overthinking a quick text message? Sometimes people are just incredibly awkward around grief. They panic, they don't know what to say to someone who is mourning, and they just blurt out something clumsy.
Yeah, that's true. They do.
So how do we know for sure this is like a malicious ego trip and not just someone who is bad at texting?
It is a totally fair question, and honestly, it is a trap we often fall into as a society. We are heavily conditioned to just assume good intent when someone reaches out during a tragedy.
Yeah, we always tell grieving people, well, at least they texted.
Exactly. But Manda's emotional intelligence allows her to bypass that performative empathy. She looks at the underlying mechanics of the request. Think about where the burden is placed here.
Okay, the burden.
Right. If I say to you, can I help you? I am putting the focus on my actions. I am offering my labor to you. But if I say, do you need me? I am putting the burden squarely on you, the person who is already suffering.
I see the distinction. So, do you need me kind of demands that the grieving person actively confess a weakness.
Yes. And more crucially, it demands that the grieving person validates the sender's importance. It forces Manda to stop managing her own tragedy and start managing the sender's ego.
Oh, wow. That is so manipulative.
It is. She recognizes this not as a lifeline, but as a declaration of ego. The sender isn't reaching out to fill a hole in Manda's life. They are demanding that Manda acknowledge a hole in them.
They want to be the center of the narrative.
Exactly. They want to be the main character.
Which brings us back to the life preserver analogy. They want applause for showing up, even if showing up actually makes the situation harder for the person drowning.
Yeah, they want a medal for participating.
It is fascinating how quickly she spots the trap. But, spotting the trap is only the first step. The lyrics then shift into how she handles it, which brings us to this incredibly intense moment of boundary setting.
Oh, the boundary setting here is phenomenal.
It really is.
Yeah.
She asks the sender directly in the song, Why would you care if you had never been barely there?
That line, barely there, it immediately contextualizes the whole dynamic. This is someone who neglected her in the past, suddenly appearing when there is high emotional drama.
Like a trauma tourist.
Yes, exactly. And when someone is in a state of mourning, their psychological defenses are way down. It is an incredibly dangerous time for an old, toxic element to reintroduce itself.
Because you're so vulnerable.
Right. And Manda understands this. She starts questioning their true motives right there in the lyrics. She asks if they want to bring back the dead or restore the pictures in my head.
Or what's the other line? Reshape my feelings so they remain unsaid.
Exactly. She is calling out the fact that this person wants to drag her back into their old drama.
And she follows that up with what might be the most striking metaphor in the entire composition. She asks if the sender has returned to remove the dirge, replace it with a dagger, so you can again be the cause of my pain.
Oh, the dirge and the dagger. That metaphor is the psychological linchpin of the song. Let's break down the definitions here because the contrast she builds is brilliant.
Yeah, let's unpack that. What's the core difference she's highlighting?
So, a dirge is a mournful song, right? It is a lament for the dead. In many cultures, a dirge is this necessary, organic act of reverence. It represents a profound natural loss. It is essentially a sign of deep love.
Right. It's painful, but it's pure.
Exactly. A dagger, by contrast, is a weapon. It represents an intentional, manufactured interpersonal betrayal. It is violent and it's unnecessary.
So by contrasting the dirge and the dagger, she is actively categorizing her pain. She is saying, look, I am mourning a beautiful love that died. That is my dirge.
Yeah, she owns that.
And she's telling this person, you want to interrupt this sacred process with your petty, dramatic, intentional violence. You want to bring a dagger to a funeral.
Precisely. We are watching her regulate her emotional state in real time here. She is refusing to let an old, toxic wound contaminate a current sacred wound.
That takes so much strength.
It does. As she reveals in the lyrics, the true source of her monumental pain is her love that was accepted by another that now lies dead in a grave.
Well, that line just hits so hard.
It's devastating. But that grief is pure. It requires her full attention. She cannot afford the cognitive load of bleeding from a dagger wound at the exact same time.
Which leads to her drawing this massive line in the sand. The lyrics state, my pain is yours no more, it's all mine.
That is such a fierce, protective stance.
It really is. And I find it so interesting how we usually view pain as something we want to get rid of, you know? Like, take this away from me. But here, she is actively claiming ownership of it.
Yeah, she is hoarding it almost.
Right. She is locking the door to the grief room and telling this person, you don't get to come in here. You don't get to be the cause of my tears anymore. This pain belongs to a real love that I lost.
Taking ownership of the devastation is a crucial step in emotional regulation. By claiming the pain as all mine, she reestablishes her autonomy.
She takes the power back.
Exactly. The sender tried to hijack her emotional state, and Manda firmly took the wheel back. But this raises an important question about the aftermath of setting a boundary.
Right, because once she successfully shuts the door on this toxic person, what happens next?
Yeah, what's left?
The adrenaline of defending herself is going to wear off eventually. The boundary is set, the sender is locked out. But now she is totally isolated in an empty room with her grief.
And that is exactly where the lyrics take a very stark turn. All those complex questions about the past, the metaphors about daggers, the analysis of the text message, all of that intellectualizing just drops away.
It all just fades out.
Yeah. She is left completely alone with the visceral reality of her loss. She describes her pain as laid bare, her grief as raw and visceral, and her loss as unimaginable.
It's just so stripped down.
It is, and it is from this stripped-down state that she finally delivers her direct answer to that opening text message. The question was, do I need you? And she responds with cold, definitive politeness, no thank you, I do not need you.
Just boom, end of sentence. It is a devastatingly simple rejection.
Oh, completely.
But what she does next is even more revealing, I think. Because she doesn't just list what she doesn't need. She makes this very specific, grounded inventory of what she actually needs to survive this unimaginable loss.
The survivalist, yes.
She said, I need air to breathe, water to drink, a place to sleep, quiet to think.
If we look at the mechanics of severe psychological trauma, this list makes perfect sense. What Manda is poetically outlining here is basically the base level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Oh, that's a great connection. Just the absolute physical foundations.
Right. When a human being undergoes a monumental grief event, the nervous system becomes entirely overwhelmed. The cognitive load is simply too high.
The brain just can't process it all.
Exactly. The complex, noisy layers of human relationships, social status, ego, career, all of that higher level processing shuts down. The brain forces a biological reset just to keep the organism alive.
For you listening, if you have ever gone through a period of severe trauma or profound loss, you know exactly what Manda's describing here. The world physically shrinks.
It becomes so small.
It does. You stop caring about all the complicated social dynamics, and your only goal for the entire day is simply trying to remember to drink a glass of water. It takes all of your available energy just to sustain biological life.
Yes, absolutely. The nervous system is essentially saying, look, we are under threat. Redirect all power to life support, breathing, drinking, sleeping.
And then there's the fourth need she lists, right? Quiet to think.
Yeah, that one is crucial.
That is not just a preference for silence. It is a biological necessity when the brain is inflamed by trauma. She needs a sensory-deprived environment. She needs the space to simply exist inside the tragedy without the buzzing of a phone, without having to manage an intrusive person's ego.
It's a profound realization. True vulnerability isn't always about spilling your guts to everyone who asks.
No, definitely not.
Sometimes vulnerability is about having the courage to shrink your world down to just air, water, and quiet.
That is beautifully put. But she doesn't stop at the biological level, does she? Because Manda is an artist, and her survival requires one more crucial element to achieve that psychological balance we've been talking about.
This is where we see the final phase of the anatomy of a feeling, building directly on top of those basic biological needs, the air, the water, the sleep. She adds her artistic needs.
Yeah.
She states that she needs songs to feel, words to say, all of the feelings I have felt since my love died and left me with too much to say.
Too much to say. Man, that phrase feels so heavy. It implies a total psychological bottleneck.
It's just a wall of emotion.
Exactly. The sheer volume of her grief, the visceral reality of her partner dying, has created this massive pressure cooker inside her mind. If she just sat in the quiet forever with too much to say, that emotion would eventually consume her.
And that is exactly the mechanism we need to look at. How does a person safely vent that kind of internal pressure?
How do you even start?
How do you regulate an emotion that is too big to fit inside a human body? You do it through the act of transposition. Manda takes the chaotic, messy, subjective internal grief, and she transposes it into a structured, objective piece of art.
So let's dig into how that actually works on a mechanical level. Because we often hear that art is therapeutic. But what is physically happening when she decides to write these lyrics?
Well, when you are grieving, your brain gets stuck in a chaotic loop. Thoughts are intrusive, they're fragmented and overwhelming. The sympathetic nervous system is just constantly firing.
Fight or flight mode, basically.
Right. So by taking those formless feelings and forcing them into the rigid structure of a song, giving them meter, giving them rhythm, choosing specific vocabulary, the brain is forced to process the trauma sequentially.
Oh, I see. It slows everything down.
Yes. The structure of the art acts as an external container. You take an infinite, unmanageable feeling and you give it a finite shape. Once it has a shape, you can look at it objectively. You can set it down.
That makes so much sense. She literally wrote the song to manufacture the words to say that she was missing. The act of creation is the act of survival for her.
It truly is.
And if we look at the structure of the song itself, we can see that container being built. The lyrics feature a lot of repetition. She loops back to those haunting questions. Can you bring back the dead? Restore the pictures in my head. Remove the dirge, replace it with a dagger.
And then she grounds herself again by repeating her baseline survival list, right? Air, water, sleep, quiet, songs, words.
Why so much repetition?
The repetition serves a dual purpose. In trauma processing, repetition is a way the brain attempts to integrate an experience that is too large to process all at once.
Like trying to swallow something in smaller bites.
Exactly. But as a lyrical choice, it also reinforces the boundary we discussed earlier. It is as if she is pacing the perimeter of her grief, cementing the walls brick by brick. Every time she repeats the phrase, the boundary gets stronger.
So by finishing the lyrics to No Thank You, she achieves two massive psychological goals at once. First, she effectively closes this specific emotional chapter with the intrusive sender.
Right, that transaction is done.
The transaction with the ego-driven text message is totally finished. The boundary is permanently set.
And second, she honors her deceased love. The dirge continues, but it continues safely within the confines of the song she has built.
The dagger has been neutralized.
Completely neutralized. She has taken an external threat and an internal devastation and synthesized them into something beautiful and enduring.
It really is a masterclass in emotional architecture. What a journey these lyrics take us on. I mean, we started out looking at an annoying performative text message from someone who was trying to hijack a tragedy.
Which happens way too often.
Way too often.
Yeah.
And we watched Manda dissect that intrusion, recognize it for the ego trip it was, and just reject it. She showed us what it looks like to fiercely protect your own sacred pain from toxic people.
It's so empowering.
It is. She reminded us that when the world shatters, it is okay to strip your needs down to absolute basics, just air, water, and sleep. And finally, she demonstrated the incredible life-saving power of transposing visceral grief into a structured piece of art.
She regulated her own emotional storm by basically building a shelter out of words. It is a brilliant example of using one's creative mind not simply to document a life, but to actually survive the hardest parts of it.
For everyone listening, you can listen to the full composition on Manda's YouTube channel. It is deeply worthwhile to hear how these meticulously structured words translate into actual music and melody.
Oh, absolutely. Hearing the vocal delivery will add an entirely new dimension to the boundaries and the emotional transposition we analyze today.
It absolutely will. And as we wrap up our analysis, I want to leave you with one final thought. Manda Menzies found a way to take the feelings that left her with too much to say and funnel them into a lasting container.
A beautiful container.
Yeah. She took the chaotic noise of grief and ego, and she built a song to hold it all. So as you go about your week, think about your own internal landscape. What unspoken, overwhelming emotions are currently taking up space in your own life, just waiting for you to find the right words to finally close the chapter?
Powerful question to ponder.
Until next time, keep listening and keep looking for the words.